Buddy, I think we're live. We had some technical difficulties. We had 3 phones going. Now we're down to 1, so bear with us. But welcome to the Tree Stuff webinar. I forget the title, but I'm Taylor Hamel with DMM. This is my good friend, Nick Grebe.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, Nick Grebe works for Minneapolis Parks and Rec. We're going to be working together today to try this fantastic in-tree live stream webinar. And we're off like a herd of turtles, as my dad would say. But thanks everybody for being here. So what we're going to cover today is basically, what do we get, a comment there, or what was that? All right, cool. Basically what we're going to cover today, we're going to touch on some advanced, I suppose you'd call it advanced, MRS technique, moving rope system or doubled rope. We'll also touch a bit on hybrid systems, so SRS and MRS together. And let's see, part of that advanced doubled rope system, I'm old school, so I'm going to call it doubled rope, but MRS, I'll try to get that in my head. So the MRS stuff we'll talk about, the add-in Prusik, lots of different applications for that. We've got roughly 2 hours of webinar with some breaks and some Q&A, so we've got a lot to cover in a short amount of time, so we might sort of rifle through a lot of it. But we'll touch on the add-in Prusik, like I said, and we'll talk about the V-rig or the M method. Let this car go by. Didn't we close the street?
I'm sorry, didn't get on that Parks and Rec.
Yeah, the V-rig or the M method, depending on what part of the world you're from, it's interchangeable. It doesn't matter. I like to call it the V-rig, but M method is fine too. And perhaps touch on some lanyard usage, some tips and tricks, some tools for using your lanyard. And the theme overall that I would like to drive home during this webinar is the need to make the best possible decision at every step along the way during your day at work. Okay, that might be driving to work, all that stuff, making a decision as to, well, I'm not going to pick up this coffee right now. I'm going to focus on driving. That's a good decision to make. So we want to apply that also into moving around the canopy, making decisions. Might be selecting your anchor point when you're throwing in. So earlier when we were getting set up, I had a decent anchor point, but it was around a smaller of 2 limbs. So Nick and I discussed it, and I took the extra 2.5 minutes to reroute the line and get it around the bigger of the 2 stems. Okay. And was it a deal breaker? No, but it was just the best possible decision at that moment in time. And when we use the add-in Prusik and when we use the V-rig and some of these advanced techniques in quotes, it's oftentimes I've found over the years, it may not even be absolutely necessary to use. Sure, you could just go out there and like you normally would. And with a single tying point, just climb out on the darn limb. Just go, go, go. I underbid this job. Hurry up. That kind of thing. But so it's doable, but it puts more pressure on you. It puts more pressure on your body, fatigue, that kind of thing. So what we're really talking about here is making good decisions and trying to become the best possible, thoughtful, technical climber that you can be, and it'll extend your longevity
throughout the day, throughout your career.
Yep. I'm just about to turn 43, so I'm no spring chicken anymore. And, I can still get around all right, but it definitely helps that I have these techniques to use. So I think what we'll do is we'll get Nick going up in the tree. Since we only have one camera now, we might have to switch the camera back and forth. It might be a little jockeying back and forth that you might get dizzy. So just, avert your eyes if you get dizzy. I think I'll get Nick going up in the tree. I just want to talk about one hybrid technique right off the bat for accessing the tree. And and then I'll get up, I'll meet Nick in the canopy. I'll film him doing some of the things, and we'll swap back and forth. And and try to have a fun time. So, all right. Thanks, Nick.
Yep.
And we're going to social distance while we do it. Okay, so I'm going to go off camera for 1 second. Wherever my harness is. Okay, we're here. We're back. Now, one thing that I like to use for ascending into a tree, I usually am ascending single rope or SRS. It's very efficient for going up and down. I like it. I don't want to body thrust my way into the canopy. That's no fun. But a certain technique that allows me to... Amazon's busy in the neighborhood today. A certain technique that allows me to use a hybrid of single rope and double rope. I've got my climbing line or my access line installed, but I'm just got this piece. Right, I've installed my line. I'm going to pull this down to where it's within reach. I'm going to take a Pinto prusik. This is just off of a pulley saver. Yep, check out Tree Stuff for all your pulley saver needs. All right, 6-coil prusik onto the rope and a stopper knot below that. I'm using a butterfly here, stopper knot of your choice. I like the butterfly because keep a nice long loop in there. You don't have to spike it with a carabiner. All right. Make sure that loop is nice and long. That's my preferred setup. Then I'm going to take my MRS system. I also would like to touch on the Hitch Climber Eccentric today. This is the newest, latest and greatest Hitch Climber version. And it has some interesting features. It's been optimized for excellent performance when working with the hitch. So it has a focused pushing plates on the top side. So there's a top and a bottom. So these plates are not necessarily closer together, but they don't flare out like on the other Hitch Climber. Got another delivery truck here. It's busy. So those focused pushing, you can still hear me? Cool. Those focused pushing plates help to advance the hitch, I guess better, you could say. It advances the hitch a bit earlier, and there's less chance of the hitch cord getting sucked into the sheave. So there's a benefit there. On the bottom side, it's got an extra wide fair lead flare, and that helps to run the rope into the sheave if it's coming off axis, if the rope is entering off axis, right, from the sides. So if you're descending as your rope is draped over a limb, make sure I'm in frame here, right, that helps to run the rope into the sheave. Will be better to do when we actually get it set up. There's a different hole spacing from the axle out to the holes. The attachment holes has been extended a bit. There's also the profile here is, I'm trying to do this backwards in the camera. That profile is curved, which also creates more space inside the rope channel so that there's less rope contact. You can see all that space in there. So there's resulting in less friction, less rope contact against the side plates. So a few of the features, it also has updated axle construction for stronger side plate support. Ball bearing standard with ball bearing sheave for increased efficiency, less friction there as well. So there's my little spiel about that. Got a video coming out soon. But what I'm going to do is install my MRS system onto the access line. So I would call this an inline anchor. Okay, I've got an anchor point in line with the access line, got my MRS system installed and ready to go. Now what's interesting about this, if I were just, if I didn't need to do any work until I got to the very top of the canopy, okay, I would just leave this short and I would run that all the way up to the top and tie into it when I got there. One of the nice things about this is I can lengthen this out. I can guess whereabouts I want to step off. So I want to ascend very efficiently on the single rope, and then I want to step off at a certain point, tie into my doubled rope system, hit a workstation on the way up. I can then come right back, flip right into the access line again, and continue my easy ascent up. So I can hit workstations on the way up. So, and that, of course, that is a benefit of SRS, of stationary rope technique, is once you're on the rope, you're already tied into your work system. You're tied into your ascending system, your working system. That's cool. That's one of the very nice benefits of SRS. My particular preference is to work throughout the canopy on moving rope system, and we'll show some of those benefits that I get out of moving rope system. We'll show some of those later, such as the add-in Prusik and the V-rig and that. But it's a way that you can get the best of both worlds, as it were. So I'm going to I'll give myself a little more room here. It's quite easy. I'm just keep a couple fingers on top of the Prusik and run the rope up, and now I've got about 20-ish feet of rope, doubled rope out. I'm just gonna now just let that go, run that all the way up to my anchor. I'm a bit nervous about tilting the camera up there to see it. You'll see it when we get to the top. So there you go. That's that. Give me a second to tie off my my base anchor here. And I also like simplicity when it comes to base anchors. I just use a running bowline, and I leave a alpine butterfly in the mix so that somebody can connect a climbing system to lower me to the ground should I need lowering. But then it's completely closed and secured and simple. There's not a bunch of gadgets and things. I used to be a big gadget person at the base anchor with this and that and the kitchen sink at the base anchor. But I've just found over the years, especially if you're working with a crew that, everybody knows what's going on, they're ready to rescue you at any time, you can get away with a little simpler system. So bear with me while I just tie this up quickly. Doing all right there, Nick? All good, Nick? Yep. Sweet. I suppose I can turn this a little bit. So I'm just, since I've run my line up to the top there, I need to give myself just a little space here. There we go. Give myself room to tie this alpine butterfly. So I'm going to start here. Alpine butterfly. And now with a bite of rope, I'm going to tie a running bowline. I'll finish it off just with a quick half hitch there. Should be plenty good. There we are. Now, in the case I needed to be rescued, there's another climbing kit over there. Simply clip a carabiner with the doubled rope system, or single rope, whatever you want to use. Clip that. You can lean into this or vector this take some weight off of it, untie the rope, and then lower the person to the ground without having to cut anything. We don't want to be cutting ropes. So I'll get suited up here. I am, this is Adrenaline, I think. Teufelberger's Adrenaline. And of course, I'm using the hitch climber with a Duralock Ultra O on the bottom and a Perfecto on the top. Perfecto is nice and compact. Also keeps the eye splice closer to the pulley, so you get less interference with your hitch. And of course, I'm using Tree Motion Evo harness. And I think what I'm going to do now, you're going to be in the dark for a minute. I'm going to stick this phone in the bag. I'm going to send it up to Nick, and then Nick can film me as I'm ascending, and I can demonstrate stepping off onto my moving rope system while I do that. So hope you're not afraid of the dark. Stand by.
Hey Taylor, how do you open your iPhone? Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone. I'm a bit of a Luddite. Yeah, it won't let me open your phone. No, it says swipe to unlock, and then it won't. Swipe up to unlock, it won't do it. Like straight up. I don't think technology has anything against me, but I start to feel like that. Now it gives me a code. Lack of technological ability, everyone. I'm going to try to flip this around. There we go. So now you can see Taylor's got both of his systems running parallel to each other. He's setting up his ascent system and loading his tie-in point. You can see up here further, you can see the Pinto pulley just sitting above the butterfly, which is behind. It's a little bit hard, but he's got both systems parallel, and he's now going to ascend up, and if he's got to hop off, he can easily transfer systems. So he gets the ease of SRS with the ascent, and then the ease of moving rope system for heading off in a different tangent. He can just ascend it. If he didn't get it set exactly where he wants, he can advance it up. But it gives him options because he's got the Evo on too. He can have two bridges and easily transfer between the two. You can see he's got a second tying point set. Loads the second system. He's going to use his assume he's going to use his Pantene instead of pulling with his shoulders. We do enough of that as climbers. So what we're really trying to hammer home today is ways to make the better decision. Like, he could have made the decision to simply pull with his arms up and got it done quickly, but if he transfers and uses Pantene, he can help take the load off his shoulders. Now he's loaded that system and checked it. He can now disconnect from the Ascent system. And sorry. And now he can move out on the limb walk and go get any pieces he needs to over the street on that side. And he gets the ease of movement with moving rope and can proceed back using the hitch climber system to kind of keep his center of gravity nice without having to get too tippy.
So you can hear me from there. That's just an example of, I had a quick workstation to hop off, just knocked it out. Now I can go back and use the efficiency of the single rope ascent or the stationary rope ascent. Yeah.
So now he's going to switch back over and turn his Ascent system into his primary system. So he's going to get all clipped in, ready to go. Whenever we're switching systems, we load the secondary, unload the primary. There we go. Check the system. It's good to go.
Now, another benefit of this, if I had a ground worker, I could just keep this connected and they could just tail it up for me. But
So he's moved this system up.
right. Another nice thing about using single rope ascent or stationary ascent, I like to have my line routed against the trunk if at all possible. If you get your toes against it, it makes it a lot easier than just simply going straight up into outer space. It's very convenient to be able to touch the tree for balance. You know, here I'm not using my upper body at all, other than to advance my foot loop, right? So efficient use of your strong limbs instead of just overusing your upper body all the time. Check that.
Switching systems again. So he's unloaded the SRS, loaded the MRS, and now can proceed with this climb.
Now you might say, okay, I'm a bit below my final tie-in point here, which really doesn't matter at all at this point if I were just going to be working the canopy below me. But if I did need to work higher, well, that's no problem. I just alternate lanyard my way up. I don't have to remain committed to this. I can just remove it and start over. It's no problem at all. So what I think I will do in this case is continue up. I'll get tied in with a pulley saver. I'll take this off the line, and we can continue from that point. And this would be where I would now turn on my camera toward Nick. But since we only have the one phone, maybe Nick, do you think you can just set that up on yourself and do a quick?
I can try.
Add in press it. Or...
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, bear with us, everybody. We're winging it. So I'll keep going up here, and of course using my legs, keeping slack out of my system. You know, I just it's pretty easy to manage slack. A lot of these techniques we'll be talking about today make that easier. Make it easier to manage slack. It's not that difficult to do. We have plenty of tools with which to do it nowadays. So at this point here, this really isn't benefiting me at this point. So I'm secured in. That's fine. I'm just going to take this now and hitch up over my next anchor point with a little throw bag here and get it stuck on my saw. There we go. And again, I'm standing here pretty well. I can, use my legs to take some of that strain off my arms. Use those legs. That's what your good mama gave them to you for. All right. Well, I'll continue getting set up here, and Nick can get situated.
I'm gonna do the moving or the auxiliary.
Yeah. Or maybe the O.
Okay. All right, everyone, bear with me. Yep, gotta get this set up on a tripod. Let's see if I can do this. This is gonna be interesting. I'm gonna flip it around. Boy, I don't know if I can do this, Taylor.
I'll be over there in a second.
Yeah, you're gonna have to come over here and hold it. It's too tight of a canopy.
Totally smashed your phone. Oh. They're pretty aerodynamic. It'll be fine.
Dude, it hit the curb. I forgot about the goddamn fan pack. No. I just smashed Taylor's phone in front of everyone on the internet.
You can see.
Oh my god.
Well, I doubt they're still streaming.
Oh, it's all good. We're probably
It's
still
right
on.
there.
Yeah,
No,
probably still
no,
live.
that's the power. It's over on the.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, dude, I'm glad you think it's funny.
When I heard you go, oh, I was like, oh, crap.
Oh, you know we wouldn't fall out of a tree.
Do I?
So
Is it still live?
it's still live,
Awesome.
and it's fine. It's untouched. I'm not an iPhone person, but if that isn't an advertisement for an iPhone, I don't know what is, because that bounced off the tree and hit face down on the curb. I am so sorry, everyone. Holy cow. Oh my god. Let me get the power pack hooked back up.
I can't wait to watch that replay.
Oh god, why did you ask me to help? Of course I screw it up. All right, Taylor's gonna get situated in the tree. I hope y'all are happy with the entertainment you got today, because you should buy an iPhone. Oh, dude, Taylor, I'm glad is such a good friend and good humor about this. If anyone dropped my phone, I would have been so not that chill about it.
I'm not even gonna know if you want to get in.
All right, so Taylor's getting his stuff set up. I'm gonna have to give him the phone because obviously I'm not equipped to run it, and he's gonna film a couple of things that I'm gonna do on the other side of the tree. So until he's set, I'm just gonna Stay on the ground with the phone. Oh, man. Are you ready for this, Taylor? Are you ready for the phone? Are you gonna? Okay. All right, everyone. Sorry for the wild ride. You're gonna go into the dark. Yep. Sorry. Okay.
Was the final resting spot of my phone. Um, it's all right. It doesn't matter. So I'm installing my phone now very gently into another tripod up here. Kind of like a Monty Python skit over here. All right. Yeah. So we got Nick in a relatively decent frame here. Nick is going to do, this is kind of the essence, the one of the techniques you can use with the add-in Prussic. And I guess this is called the big O rig, or, add-in Prussic for ascending. So you get, instead of taking a few short pulls and tending slack and taking a few short pulls and tending slack, we're going to introduce this add-in Prussic. So he's got his lanyard on, little thimble Prussic right there. You can also use this Prussic doesn't have to be load bearing because you're going to be captured in the loop of the rope. So this Prussic could be, something smaller. It could be a cam device like the Rope Man. Zooming in a little bit, is that all right, Kale? Okay, I'm zoomed on my phone, but apparently you can't see it. So what Nick has done here is taken that Prussic loop and added it on the side where his eye splice is. He has then taken his eye splice and stuck it through the big swivel. This is hard to do with a small swivel. You need the big swivel or a ring to do this on your bridge. And connected that add-in Prussic then to the top carabiner where his eye splice originally was. And now what this allows him to do is advance that hitch climber. You don't want to get it too far away from you, but now he can take big, long pulls, right, with his arm. So always tending slack on his way up. Never any slack in the system. And now when he's where he wants to be, he can just collapse back into work positioning mode where the friction hitch is easy to get to, right? Easy to reach. So let's do that. Just come down a couple more feet, Nick, and then let's see it in action one more time. And you can, now that it's installed, you can just leave it installed throughout the rest of the climb. Even under some tension, you can still advance it away from you. And now as he's going up the tree, as he's pulling, it's tending the slack as he goes. Never any slack except just a little bit of sit back in the hitch. So that is one use for the add-in prusik. It makes your life a little bit easier and takes the slack out of the equation. Boy, did anybody see Krista Stratting's North American Masters climb last year? It's really good. Really good. I don't think she used this old system, but boy, Krista's one of a kind. She's a heck of a climber. All right, so Nick is just, go ahead, Kale. Yep, yeah, she won North American Masters Challenge champion 2019. There might be a question on that later. All right, well, let's see. Since I'm in position here, Nick, what do you think? Do you want to make your way down to there and then come up to me, and you can use the add-in that way? Cool. Just watch your back. So we're in a relatively small hackberry here, and but if you were climbing this by yourself, there's kind of a. I'm just making darn sure this tripod is tight. So there's a relatively good spread from Nick's tie-in point over to my tie-in point. And if you were climbing this tree by yourself, you would pretty much need to use Nick's anchor point for getting the stuff over the house. And you would pretty much have to use my anchor point to get the stuff over the street here. So as Nick, we're just going to assume that Nick is finished on that side, and now he's coming up to work this side of the tree. So his rope angle, not terrible right now, but this is kind of a weird, spready, kind of big unions with lots of gaps, lots of space in between them. So as he's working his way over here, he wants to protect himself as that rope angle gets steeper and steeper. And it doesn't look it right now, but he's from this angle, but he's almost at 45. He'll be at 45 once he steps up into that next union where his lanyard is. So what Nick has done now, yep, hold it out like that just for a second, Nick. So you can see, touch your I-splice carabiner, right? So that's his carabiner and I-splice connection into the center hole of the hitch climber. That's where he's had that set up this whole time. And he's taken now a load-bearing prusik. This is important because it has to take his body weight or share his body weight with the other prusik. So he's taken that, tied a 6-coil prusik, and clipped it into the top hole of the hitch climber. Okay, and what that does, now if you just rest into that, Nick, so now he's got some slack on the front end of his line, and he is completely secured still into his primary anchor point. Okay, so those two prusiks are working together. That his regular friction hitch and then the add-in prusik. Now, the 6-coil prusik is reliable. It grabs reliably. It's also bi-directional, which we'll show you in another couple moves here. The next thing we'll discuss. So keep that in mind. You might be tempted to tie a French prusik or something there. I recommend a 6-coil prusik. It grabs reliably, and you can use it in both directions. So what Nick is going to do now is basically use the front end of that line as another lanyard. Now, keep in mind, it's still part of your climbing system. It's not actually a lanyard, but he can now pass while he's still connected, right? He's still got his lanyard on. He still has some tension. If you scoot that 6-coil back just to the right, just a little bit. So he's still got a little tension in his primary anchor. He's got his lanyard on. Now he's made this second attachment point with a little bit of slack in it. And he can, if it has too much or too little slack, you can always just manipulate those friction hitches and get it to where you want it. Now, you'll notice, and this is perfect, we discussed this earlier, so Nick tightened that up just a little bit much, where he's sort of relying on both lines. And this is an easy trap to get into. It's which we discussed earlier. It's always better to keep just a little more tension in your primary anchor and just a wee bit of slack in that line there. And you'll see as you experiment, Blackhawks. I thought we told the Blackhawks this is a no-fly zone during this webinar. Okay, so as you experiment with this, you'll find that it's a little bit easier to manipulate if you just keep a little bit of slack in that front end. So anyway, now Nick is able to remove his lanyard, and if he were to slip and lose his balance right now, he would just be caught in the V, basically. All right, so no big deal, very little shift, and so he's protected. He's nice and relaxed. He's not holding on with one hand. He's not sticking carabiners in his mouth or, using anything like that. So he's quite secure and comfortable. And now he can just advance his lanyard as necessary. And this is another point to make right now is it's always a little bit easier in this case to tension up your lanyard. So what he's done now is he's used the add-in prusik to create that safety loop. And now that he is going to advance, he's using his lanyard because it's just easier to manipulate. It's separate from those other prusiks. So now that he's in and he's using the doubled line configuration for CE lanyard clipped into that becket, he's secure. He can take off that eye splice. Now, here's another point. So Nick has an eye splice that's pretty bulky at the end of that rope. So that I'd feel relatively comfortable using that as a stopper knot. But say it was rainy and slippery or icy, you had ice on your rope, it's always a good idea to put a stopper knot either at the end of your rope or leave your carabiner attached if you want, or put a stopper knot, directly below the add-in prusik. Either way, just as a reminder, you're working pretty close to the end of your line there, so it's good to keep that in mind. So yeah, now Nick has secured himself and he's advanced. He'll advance up to the next spot here. Sure. This right now is neither. It is the beginning of the V rig, what I would call the V rig. There's different strokes for different folks, but right now I would just call this the add-in prusik. He's just used that add-in prusik to create a short, usable length of rope on the front end of his system. And of course, this is certainly doable with a double-ended lanyard. You could use the tail of your climbing line. You could pull up another entire climbing system. Those are all very valid solutions to this problem. But I like the add-in prusik because it's super quick, super easy, and I can readily adjust the length of line that's in front of me. And all it takes is just one carabiner and one prusik. And of course, I got all my stuff in Nick's way. So here this next step is a relatively big one. And if you need to turn toward or turn your back to me, Nick, that's fine too, and I can move around. So, but yeah, once again, here Nick is secured, add-in prusik, he's got some tension in his primary anchor. And you can see that's over 45-degree angle now. If he were to slip now, he'd take a swing back into the trunk. Not fun. So this allows him, he's still holding on, he's balancing, but if he were to slip, he wouldn't go far at all, just about a half a foot. And here, because he needs to advance upward and it's easier to do it with the lanyard, he is connecting into the becket there, into the swivel, and he can easily pull himself up hand over hand, or if he's got a pantene or a foot ascender, he can also use the foot ascender on the tail of his lanyard. A lot of folks don't consider that, but you've got the tail of the lanyard sitting there. It's acting like a climbing line anyway. Just stick it in your foot ascender and go. Bang. Super efficient. Use those powerful legs.
Thanks for noticing, Taylor.
Uh-huh. Yep, good deal. Here, just keeping tension in his primary anchor. And there's got a bit of clutter in the way there, so sorry about that. But once again, Nick has tension in his primary anchor. He is using his lanyard for security at this point, and now, once again, just alternating, just flipping up. Here he needs to create a little more length, so very simple, just alternate between the friction hitch and the add-in prusik. Connected, and there you go. Yep, it's going to flip my way here. Yep, I'll try to get out of your way. Good. So there you go. That was a cool way to do that. Nick, let's do the body thrust up.
Body thrust
Yeah.
Up. Drop down or...
Yeah, drop down again and body thrust into that crotch where it is now. So we're just gonna take this a step further. Yeah, just go down into that crotch again, and then because it'll just have more impact, more movement that way. So we're gonna take a step back, hit the reset button for a second, and show you another advantage to the add-in prusik and the importance of a 6-coil or bi-directional prusik. So yeah, that's a good spot. So, and you can remove your lanyard if you feel comfortable, whatever you want to do. Let's say Nick was in a position here, so he's secured now. He's got his foot for balance. If he was in a position where his lanyard needed to be directly in front of him, he couldn't pitch his lanyard up high like he did. Just let him get reset here. This is great. I don't have to do much climbing like this.
And I don't have to drop an iPhone.
There you go. That was amazing. I can't wait to see the replay.
Oh, dude.
All right. So here's Nick. Now let's say he's in this spot. Do you think actually put your lanyard on and just pull it and see if you can pitch even with all that junk in your way? And if you we can maybe
for
pull
the
it.
director.
Yeah, exactly. So let's here we go again. Nick is going to just hit the reset button here. He's got to this point in the tree. He's got a pretty good distance to go, and he doesn't want to strain and hucklebuck his way up there like he did that first time. So very nice. Chuck that thing up with that was easy enough. You could tie a monkey fist. You can use an old throw bag like I did. And now, because the prusik is bi-directional, watch this. Move it to the other side. Now he's got slack in his main tie-in. Check for security, lanyard off. And now he can body thrust or use his pantene, whatever he wants to do. It's not that much of a distance. And in this case, body thrust. Instead of hugging that trunk, or if you're in a spot where you just can't reach the branches, there's just too much of a gap. That was a good 8 foot or so gap, almost 2.5, almost 3 meter gap. There you go. So here he is, and now just pull on the friction hitch, get some tension in that main anchor point again, just in case. There you go. Now he's got tension in that main line. He's sitting happy here. He got up to that point where now it's quite easy for him to alternate up to that tie-in point. So six coil Prusik, bi-directional. He was able to move it and use it both directions. Here's another interesting one. Nick, give me one. This is a perfect place to talk about the different rings, the different Ds on the tree motion harness. So Nick's lanyard is up over his head, well above his waist. Yeah. Now, if Nick were to attach his lanyard to the side Ds, those upper side Ds, the circles, right? The circular rings, circles. Say shapes, Taylor. Say your shapes. I know squares. I know ovals. Okay, now this is an uncomfortable position for Nick. That is putting pressure on his hips, on his waist. Not only that, but the harness actually isn't. Well, I guess you could say those side rings are not certified for suspension, right? It's for positioning. Maybe I'm mincing words there, but if you are going to put your lanyard above your anchor, above your waist, you should clip into the forward Ds on the tree motion. Okay, now, because the forward Ds are the connection point for the bridge, and bridges in this case, right? Now he's very comfortable. He's got tension both in his on his legs. It's sharing and moving that those pressure points away from pinching his hips, okay, away from pinching his waist, and it's distributing it into his legs and sort of into his hips a bit more. So this is a big thing that I see all the time. Nobody uses those front Ds the way they should be, and you should always connect to those front Ds anytime your lanyard is above your waist, especially if it's above your head there. So something to consider. It's quite comfortable. And if something were to happen, you'd be a lot more comfortable hanging there than you would be if you were in the sides there. So use those forward Ds. Okay, where were we?
Gonna turn this into the end of the V.
Yep. Yeah, that's good.
You want me to do it without taking the Prusik off, or?
No, that's fine. We'll just. Hey, Kale, what time is it? I can't see because my phone is just one big screen. Okay, 7:01. So we got to do a 6-minute advertising break. Do you want to do that now? And then how much do you want to do a dedicated Q&A at the end, or should we just keep going? Okay. Okay. Yeah. If anybody has any questions, feel free to post in the comments. We'll get to them as we can as we go. Otherwise, we'll dedicate 10 minutes or so at the end of the session to answer your questions. What do you think, Kale? You want to do your 6-minute break now, or should we keep going? Let's introduce you to the V rig here, and then we'll take a break. So anyway, Nick worked his way up here to this other anchor point. He's going to be working on this side of the tree, but he wants to maintain his connection back to that primary anchor because he's we forgot he's got this lead out here that he's got to do at some point. So he doesn't want to give up that anchor just yet. But we're going to utilize this anchor using the V rig or the M method, depending who you talk to. I'm just going to call it the V rig for here. So Nick will set this up. Sans, and he can remove that Prusik too. That's not necessary at this point. We'll just he's secured with his lanyard, so he's all good while he manipulates here. And this is just the straight up V rig. Do you need a pulley saver, or do you have a?
I have an extra friction saver over here.
Okay, cool. So thing about the V-rig is, well, a couple things about the V-rig and friction. So this might be on the test. In general, when you're moving around and positioning with the V-rig, it's nice to have pulleys. Now, are we losing the feed or something? Yeah, it's all sparkly and colorful. I wonder what that's about. Hotspot's just down at the base of the tree. Okay. Yeah, a little some technical difficulty. Should I keep that in my pocket? Would that be better? Sure. Just sitting there on the back of my truck. Okay, we're good. We're back up. So less friction is better in the V rig. So Nick has a ring and ring, or rather, thimble saver back there. So steel thimbles, less friction than a branch, of course. And over here, he's installing.
Do you want me to do that? Do you want me to run the
Yeah, well, what he's got with him is a friction saver, another friction saver. I'm going to hand him a pulley saver. The guy who has two of everything over here, me. Um, so when you're moving around a lot on the V rig, it's a good idea to have less friction. So pulleys are excellent to use because there's less friction, and you've got basically twice again the amount of rope. So in a moving rope system, you've got the leg of rope moving away from you and coming back to you. So that's 2 times the rope. Well, now in the V rig, you've got 2 times the rope. You've got 4 times the rope here. So that creates a bit of friction when it goes over all those points. The center point here, is good to have a pulley there. That's probably the most important point to have the pulley. If you only had one, I would encourage you to have more. So anyway, now that Nick is set up and secured here, he's going to weight the system. All right, now this is the V-rig. We've basically just created a second tie-in point, but we still just have the one friction hitch. Now he can move himself around in a certain arc here. Maybe you want to go out on that limb over there. So here's a good example. Of course, there's a bunch of my stuff in the way. But a good example is this limb that Nick will walk out just a little bit now. It doesn't have to go crazy. But here he is moving just just a thumb and finger on that friction hitch. Makes it very smooth. And that's because of less friction. All right, so basically we've got primary anchor point is still intact, but with that rope angle, it would be not only a dangerous swing, but it'd be uncomfortable to try to stand there. He's got basically this anchor point directly above his head now, so super stable, and he can move around in a certain, I'm going to try to get in here without dropping the phone. So now he can basically move in a certain radius without having to touch the friction hitch at all. Try to get that, and yep, doing a little dead wooden. Right, so there he's moving. Didn't even have to touch the friction hitch. Quite stable. Now, if he were to come out here to his right, to my left, he's going to have to add a little rope into the system, and that's easy enough to do just by pulling on the friction hitch. Yep, and using all the legs of rope. Perfect, right? And you can see he's leaning into it a little bit. There's a little bit of friction where we're kind of wrapped around. Another great reason to use a pulley on a longer sling is it'll go around the stem there, keep you away from the stem. But there you go. And now on the way back, taking a few pulls, keeping that slack out of the system. And at a certain point, he can just move. If he wants to tension it up, he can still keep tensioning it. Otherwise, he can just move in that certain radius without even touching the prusik. Yeah, I would call this the V rig. Some people call it the M method. I use them interchangeably. So this is the V rig because it looks like a big giant V. Or you could say it's an M because there's 4 legs like on an M. There you go. And now let's use the add-in prusik again. All right. Now, Nick, here's one thing. While Nick's tying this add-in prusik, notice he's tying it on the leg opposite his eye splice. Okay. And he's just clipping it into that hole on the hitch climber. Okay. So now what does he have? He has sort of an isolated system. Now, this will keep him from equalizing out. It's a sort of a progress capture, right? So if he were to sort of just let himself swing out into space right now, right? Notice this, there you go. He's created slack in his primary anchor all the way back there. And now he's just using the prusik to keep himself dedicated, as it were, to this secondary anchor. And now, why would you want to do that? Well, maybe he's working on this limb behind him and he just doesn't need that primary anchor point. It's actually kind of causing him some grief, but he still wants to keep it. So he can just create that slack and he can work just a little bit using just this single prusik here, right? Okay. Now, here's something to consider. The material used in that prusik. Now, if you have a friction hitch that's running along the rope, you want to use a heat-resistant cordage. So the stuff that he's using here is, what is that, Armor Press or EpiCord? My bad. I should have known that. So he's using EpiCord. That's got some Technora, some heat, or some Aramid stuff. It's got heat resistance built into the cover. Okay. Now, if that was just straight up polyester, pure polyester, not such a good idea. Pure polyester has a low melting point. And when you're running it along a rope at high speeds or just over and over again, you're going to melt that pure polyester pretty quickly. So it's a good idea if you're going to have your hitch moving along the rope quite a lot, use a heat-resistant cord. Now, having said that, when I set up my add-in prusik, I like to use the multi-sling, which is polyester. But when I use it, I make sure that I'm not moving very much with it. It's more of a static grab, and that's okay. So it's just something to consider. You don't want to tie on a pure polyester friction hitch and just go tearing through the tree because you'll melt it very quickly. So another purpose of this, now Nick can advance his way again up to this anchor point. Feet against the trunk, a little bit of body thrusting here. Again, he could put that into his foot ascender as well. But at this point, yeah, so just to show, you don't just have to use your foot ascender on the tail. You can use it anywhere you want, right? Cool. And now at any point, it's just a few pulls below the hitch climber eccentric there, and he can put tension back into his primary anchor. Now he's suspended by both again, right? Do you want to flip it and traverse? Yep. Yeah. So here's the V-rig with an add-in prusik. Now he's going to traverse back to his primary anchor. So he just removed the add-in prusik, very quick and easy to tie a 6 coil here, clip it to the other side. Now just hand over hand. And if he needs to take a break, he can stop, and that prusik will capture his progress in that direction. Right? Now, this is a little bit of upper body work, but it's not too bad. Now he can, step on his tail and get some, shorten up this loop a little bit, get himself up a little higher. Still, he's, both anchor points are under tension. This is the V-rig. Yep. There he goes, a little hand over hand. Now he's in a good position here. All right. Yep, perfect. Now, he has a choice here. He can put his lanyard on and, tidy everything back up. He can remove. I bet you don't have a yellow cone, do you?
No, I don't.
That's all right. I'll catch it over here. So he can remove this from a distance, but I didn't give him my yellow cone for the pulley saver. But we'll get that sorted out while we do a little commercial break. So, but right now he could, if he wanted to, put his lanyard on, but he's perfectly fine not putting his lanyard on because he is secured with that prusik, right? There he goes, just disconnected. And if he were close to the end of the rope, it's a good idea to have a stopper knot there where his hand is. Yep. Just for giggles. Right? Just in case. So there you go. He's perfectly secured there while he retrieves this. So we'll get this retrieved. And I think we'll take that break. Carson, let me know when we're ready. Sorry, Kale. Yes, I did. Yep. Yep, for sure. Cool. All right, we're going to take a break and we'll be back in a minute. 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes. See y'all.
Years, and I've taught it around the country to hundreds and thousands of students, and I have a very good track record. I have almost a 98% pass rate with this. So we're going to give you a money-back guarantee if you don't pass this exam. With over 6 hours of on-demand videos, I'll cover the critical topics from soil science to tree biology, pruning, tree risk assessment, and much more. I'm a board-certified master arborist and an ASCA registered consulting arborist. I've been teaching at Purdue University for 10 years. I've also taught at Vincennes University in their horticulture program as well. So that's why I'm here with you, very passionate about this topic and even more enthusiastic about the fact that you're listening and you're interested in advancing your career and your credentials.
Our unconditional guarantee and industry-best curriculum make the Tree U Certified Arborist Prep course the best investment you can make in your professional career.
If you're looking to share your opinions with Tree Stuff and make some money, you're in luck. You can film a Tree Stuff review and earn gift certificates for use on Tree Stuff. Just film at least 1.5 minutes of your opinions on your favorite Tree Stuff products, and we'll put you on the site and send you a $10 gift code per video. To start reviewing, head to treestuff.com/review. to read the video requirements and upload.
I'm Carson with treestuff.com, and I'd like to ask you to take a second to learn about the Fallen Families Fund. It's a charity created to provide small cash donations to families who have been affected by the death or injury of a working arborist. All of the administrative costs are covered by Cheryl Inc., so 100% of your contribution goes to help families in their time of healing and recovery. You can learn more and donate at www.fallenfamiliesfund.org.
Trio caching is a fun tree stuff program based around searching for hidden treasure in the trees. Volunteer arborists from around the world have set caches in their area for climbers to seek out using GPS, their wits, and their climbing skills. To start trio caching, all you have to do is go to treestuff.com/triocache and find a cache near you. We have a few new trio caches to announce. Brandon Othen of Arizona has set Trio Cache 87 near Phoenix. Sid Howells of Social Climbers in the UK has set up 2 trio caches, number 108 near Southampton and number 109 near Guildford. If you'd like to find these caches or any of the other caches around the world, you can request the coordinates at treestuff.com/triocache.
Keep your mouth shut and your ears open. You've got to truly humble yourself every day and realize that one bad decision will be your last if it's the wrong one.
Never stop learning.
Learn and study a good arborist as much as possible. Watch them, watch how they work in a tree.
You know, get their 2 cents, especially in business. That's been the biggest challenge for me is finding out that a relative degree of skill will not carry me through, that I needed to be diligent as well about the business side of things.
If you haven't already gone to some sort of trade show, competition, whatever, get out and just shake hands with people. You'd be amazing. You'd be amazed how welcoming everybody is and how much they want to be there to help you. It's pretty inspirational.
Don't just take one person's advice, seek out as much information as you possibly can.
And also realize that it's not a single man sport. This is a team sport. It's a team occupation. And how we interact with each other, and how we make each other feel is just as important as how great you can climb and how wonderful you can rate.
You gotta expose yourself to greatness. You don't settle. If you feel like you're gridlocked and you're not learning, move on and go find somewhere where you can learn and grow, So that's probably the best advice I can give. Soak it up like a sponge everywhere you can get it.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Taylor's just took a quick water break and is coming back up to his moving rope system. Oh, and the hotspot. I was too busy nervously holding on to an iPhone. So Taylor's going to switch systems here and demonstrate the V-rig from a different angle, a little bit from the angle where I was originally tied in, and demonstrate a way that you can do it without having to use your lanyard being clipped into the main system the whole time. So he's going to switch into his moving rope system right now. Checking the system. Unclipping his stationary rope. Securing his gear, and then he's going to probably swing around and bust out some sweet moves at the age of 43.
I'll try not to breathe too heavily. Right. So this is a good example. If you can hear me from there.
Can you hear, Cal?
I've got some footholds here, but this is actually a bit awkward. And for me to, I guess it's all right, but I'm going to have to make kind of a muscle move in order to, and I don't want to use my muscles anymore. Too old for that. Keep my system tight and put my lanyard on here just in case. There we go. That felt better than perhaps sliding back into the trunk. Okay. Flip around. One of the nice things about using a swivel is you can turn around underneath it. Keep your lines running cleanly. So I'm gonna do the same thing that Nick did here. Use the add-in prusik to sort of alternate my way over these limbs rather than expose myself to a swing, because I'm at about 45 degrees right now. I'm gonna make it up to the top there. And we're getting a little short on time. I'm gonna just talk about, like Nick mentioned, using the V-rig, the stay tied in method, using the add-in prusik. And I'll also talk about another aspect of using friction in the V-rig to your advantage. So where in general, we want to, as little friction as possible in the V-rig so that it runs smoothly, we can also use friction on one side of it to help us keep our position, right? The V-rig always wants to equalize you into the center. So if I tie in these 2 points and just let myself go, it'll slide me into the center of the canopy where I'm just hanging in outer space. And of course I can just pull myself back over, but instead of fighting that the whole time, if we can use the add-in prusik to keep our progress like Nick did over here. But I can just simply use a little bit of friction if I'm just gonna make a couple cuts and I'm not worried about damaging the cambium, then I'll just use some friction over there. So in the meantime, let me get my add-in prusik. And I like to keep a little bit of tension on the primary anchor point, and I tie my 6-coil a little bit differently. I just pull that bridge through just enough to get the carabiner through, and then just pull that bridge through again. Okay, tied, dressed, and set, just like that. Very quick and easy. I didn't have to pass the carabiner, through the mess every time. So that gets clipped in to the top hole. And now I've got tension in that, and I'm creating this leg over here. All right. Got my lanyard in this spot. So it just very, very easily just alternating back and forth. Okay, now what I mentioned before, this is polyester, so I'm not going to really go ripping and roaring on this. I'm just going to use it as a progress capture. So that looks good. I have a slace here, very low profile, so I'm going to put a stopper knot below here. Nick had a nice eye splice on the end, so he wasn't too worried about it. But me, I'm just going to tie a Alpine butterfly. All right, just in case that wants to slip, it stops there. And that's not getting in my way. It can just stay there. So just going to pass this over the next point. The temptation is there to just take this and toss it as high as you can. And that's okay. But if you're just making little movements, just make little movements, you know, just take a little step at a time. This is at a weird slope. I wouldn't want to chuck it all the way up over there. I probably couldn't reach it anyway. Whereas when Nick went up there, it was very vertical, and that's a great spot to use the body thrust method. So I've got a little more slack than I want here, so I'm just gonna untie that stopper knot. Now that I'm clipped back in, just alternate between those. Right, I'm still keeping tension here and just a little bit of slack here. All right, now I can take my lanyard off, and if I lose it, right, that's all I did was just take that little bit of a swing. Myself a little bit, and this is where I like to use the lanyard up a little bit higher. Because it's easier to adjust. All right, secured in. I'm gonna put a stopper knot in here again. All right, and a little bit of tension, and I'm gonna just walk my way up. That didn't take a whole lot of effort. Hello. All right, keeping that slack tended. Right. Okay. Another changeover with the swivel. Right, and you can see I'm moving along with this stopper knot, but this is just hanging there. It's not bothering me at all. I don't have to tidy it up every time if I know I'm going to use it again and again. All right. So maybe, is this a good angle?
Yeah, I've got most everything.
Okay.
Except for that one hackberry branch right in the middle.
Well, that's all right. We're going to leave it there because we love hackberries. Or maybe I should just prune it.
Yeah.
We're going to prune it.
They clean up the shot.
Here's another thing. If I'm cutting, I've got my lanyard on. I'm secured in my original tie-in point. But if I were to cut my lanyard, I've got a really, really flat rope angle right now. And if I were relying on that lanyard, handsaw or chainsaw, I would take a pretty good swing. So why not utilize that add-in prusik again? Okay, and just because we can, we'll take that knot out and we'll make some adjustments so that I don't have quite so much slack in it. Okay, easy to do. Little bit of slack here. We'll do even less. Okay, just a touch of slack. I'm still got my lanyard in position 2. Good footing here. Okay, nobody below. Awesome. So whether you're standing on spikes, 660, blowing out a big top, whatever, got 2 points of attachment here that are slightly separated. And again, you could do that with a double-ended lanyard, another climbing line, the tail of your rope, whatever. I prefer this. It doesn't leave a loop of rope in the middle, but there you go. So let's set up here. I'm gonna just reset. So we can start fresh. All good?
Sorry, I gotta get my rope out of the shot if I can.
Oh yeah, no problem.
And not drop it.
So just to start over, again with untying it, just pretty quick and easy. All right, I've got to this position and I want to set up the V-rig here. But for whatever reason, I don't feel comfortable completely disconnecting from my main tie-in while I set it up. Oftentimes you might get to a spot and realize, oh, I wanted to put the V-rig in here. But now that I'm out here, it's so fumbly and weird. Like I need to keep tension in that main tie-in point. So here's how you deal with that. Try to get, I guess it's okay. First, take your pulley, or in this case, since Nick already showed it with the hitch climber, I'm going to use the revolver rig. Okay, I'm going to clip that in first to that top hole of the hitch climber. Okay, I'm going to keep an eye on this. They're not clashing with the gates, so I'm comfortable with that. Now that this is in place first, now the add-in prusik. 1, 2, 3, and into the becket. Okay, I have tension in that system, and I'm going to very carefully just adjust between the two. So I'm just going to like hunker down if I'm truly keeping tension in that line, in my primary anchor point, right? Very carefully here. I don't have to do this, but I'm doing it to prove a point. And look at that. Okay, I'm creating that loop with the pulley ready for the V-rig, using the add-in prusik, and keeping tension in my anchor point the whole time. Right, I'm just hunkering back into it, adjusting between prusiks. Okay, that should be good. Now, stop or not is a good idea. Let's do it. I'll give myself just a little more rope here. Still have tension in that primary anchor. Good. Stop or not. Just a little bit lower here so I'm not clashing with Nick's stuff. Disconnect. Okay, there's the V-rig installed. Now what do I do? What do I do? I take lunch. Okay, there's the V-rig. I'm going to rest down into it a little bit, but I need to untie that and get the slack out. Again, I'm just keeping tension in both legs here, or both anchor points. That's feeling good. Okay. Now I can remove this if I don't need it. So if you practice that, I talked through it and all that. Did it very deliberately and slowly, but you could set that up in 30 seconds. It's super easy to do. Oh, maybe 1 minute. All right, but here I am now, tied into the V-rig. No problem. I can blast away, do whatever I want to do. Now, I am going to utilize this anchor point to walk out on that limb below me there. But I don't want the V-rig pulling, trying to, I don't want to fight against it the whole time. So this is one case where friction in a V-rig might be desirable. Okay, it landed it in. I'm just going to make a quick switch here. Going to, and this, you want to be careful you don't lose this, because then you'd have a bit of a headache. So it's important, always use a stopper knot, always secure it somehow, because if you lose that line, you're kind of SOL. The caveats. How's the video, Kale? Is it better now that I've got the hotspot up here? Okay. Yes. I don't think my pocket does it. So real quickly though, let me get tied in before I get distracted. All right. V-rig, I'm just gonna throw it over natural fork. All right. Good, secured there. So what that does now, if I let go here, the friction in that branch there keeps me here, right? If that was a pulley, this would, I'd go swinging that way, which is fine, it's efficient. But this is what I want to use for this, because I just want to make one little cut out there, and I don't want to have to fight this, right? Or whatever, this branch, I don't have to descend down too much. But, in this case, here, I'm using that friction. It's overhead tie-in point, plus the friction is keeping me positioned, so I don't have to fight that much. And talking about the theme of making the best choice at every step along the way, here I could have just easily lanyarded it around this smaller limb, but I chose to lanyard around the bigger limb. Same difference in time and accessibility, but it was the better choice to lanyard it over the bigger limb, I would say. So anyway, here I'm free to work without straining too much, because that friction is holding me in position. So you don't always have to use pulleys, right? How much time are we dealing with? 16, okay, and we want to do a little Q&A. So what I think, so how we want to finish this off, I'm pretty sure I covered all the talking points in the quiz. Kale, can correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, okay, so we're not going to get to the hook. But real quickly now, but thank you, Kale. I still will mention the hook. Right now, I'm going to body thrust to get back to that position, to maintain tension in the climbing system. Instead of, sure, I could just grab on and just walk up there, but then I'm introducing slack. And the nice thing about foot ascenders and the V-rig, I can still stand against the trunk, so I can take 2 pulls, right? And then pull the slack through with your foot ascender until it pops out.
There, let me move so you can see that again.
All right, so I'm going to take 1 or 2 pulls and then just pull the slack out with my foot ascender. You don't always just have to use a foot ascender under tension. You can use it keep the slack out of your system as well. And again, that V-rig just moves along with me within a certain radius. And if I want to add more rope or subtract rope from the system, I just use the friction hitch. So what I think we'll do now, I'll install my pulley saver again so I can descend without burning up this bark. And I think I should move down one for the kickoff. All right, that's probably fine with both of us.
It's probably fine. It's nice and vertical.
So we're gonna descend to the ground now, and we're gonna show the counterbalance rescue, which also incorporates the add-in prusik. We decided to do it on the ground because we don't have another camera person, and we're too afraid to put that thing back on a tripod. So yeah, just bear with us for a few minutes. If you want to keep filming Nick while I set this up or whatever, that's cool. And descend and retrieve. Oh, that's another thing. We didn't show the retrieval, but you can retrieve these pulley savers in the tree or once you get on the ground, whatever. Again, just remember in the V-rig, I'm using twice as much rope as normal. So really I'm using 4 times the rope. So we're about 40, our anchor points are maybe at 40 feet here. And 40 feet, so like 12-ish meters. And so I'm going to need to quadruple that in order to have enough rope to get to the ground. Okay. And I should, because this is a 200-foot rope, right? So it's going to take all of 160 feet of rope for me to get to the ground with 2 anchor points at 40 feet. So anyway, lanyard on. Don't lose your climbing line. Get in there. Okay. That's looking good. If you've seen any of my rigging demonstrations and things, you'll know that the smaller this angle, the less force on the anchor points. As we flatten this angle, as that angle gets wider, we put more and more tension, or more and more tension in the lines and more force on those anchor points. Something to keep in mind with the V-rig as well. And just to control myself, I'm just going to keep a hand just on this top leg, right? Well, I guess, but you can manipulate yourself just by, pulling on those top legs. This anchor point's slightly lower, so I'm going to travel toward that before it starts to equalize again. And, you can always pull yourself into the position you want to be in, or again, use that add-in prusik. So away we go. I'll see you on the ground, Nick.
Yep. All right. I'm gonna put away your phone so I don't drop it. Everyone, you're gonna go into the dark, but it's for Taylor's phone safety.
And where's the
Want me to just set it over here? Okay. Welcome back, everybody.
I'm in a spot now where I want to retrieve that secondary anchor point while I'm in the tree. So secured with my lanyard, little cone goes on. Little flick and tidy it up. Just takes, a minute or so to just get organized. It's not a race. I know we have this job under bid, but we have 17 other underbid jobs to do this week. So I need to save my energy. Yeah, back in my day when I competed, yeah, I like this system. I prefer single up, double down, do some other hybrid single rope stuff, but we kind of ran out of time talking about that stuff. What I wanted to say about the hook, we didn't get to showing the throwing hook, but if you're using a throwing hook, whatever it happens to be, if it's a captain or not, the only way to make sure that it's anchored or in position correctly is by visually assessing it. Don't go by feel. You have to be able to see that it's captured around the limb that you want and that it's in a good position, that it's not going to pull out. So when you're using the hook, just always make sure you have a visual on it. If you don't have a visual, you're probably better off just throwing again until you can get sight on it or get one of your ground crew to look at it. So just remember that. All right. And I'm just going to set the anchor right here, Nick.
Okay.
For our.
You want me to drop down?
Yep.
The
Yeah,
pickoff?
You can
all right.
Come down to the ground.
Going back into the dark, folks. Hold on one second.
Out. You don't need to film this. Heads up.
All clear. Got us? Okay. I'm going to try to get the tripod set up. Lost you there, kid. I got you now. Did you get that, Taylor?
Yeah, you can feel that one.
For me personally, I prefer the moving rope system when I'm doing something smaller trees or when I'm above 45 degrees, really 30 degrees and above off of plumb. I like SRS more when it's working a tree in columns, so straight up and down. So like conifers, or if there's just 3 single ascents to get to the portion of the tree, but I don't have to get too far off of plumb. That's when I think SRS really shines. And you get the best of both those systems when you can kind of combine them in a tree. So sometimes, like Taylor had that setup where he went up on one SRS and did moving rope for a chunk. He could then take the SRS rope and move it over to and throw it through another portion of the tree, so he could do the top, middle portion and moving rope, and then have that hung for one piece way out here, but he'd have it pre-strung while he's doing his moving rope. So I think the combination, but generally the rule of thumb is 0 from plumb to 30 degrees. So plumb to like 30 is SRS is best, and then once you get past that, that's where I like moving rope. If that answers Ellie's question. Oh yeah. Taylor walked away a little bit with the hot spot.
Oh, hot spot's there.
Still super psychedelic.
Yeah, we're seeing it in the little viewer, but not in the not on what we're actually.
There we go.
Filming. Okay, good. We're about 50% battery life on the hotspot. So, all right. So, I think that's good.
Gonna frame it up.
Okay, what we're going to do now is demonstrate the counterbalance rescue, and I'll talk through it as we go. But basically, this would be used in a situation. Let's say we're just doing it on the ground here for a few reasons. It's safer to practice it on the ground, but also we don't have a good tripod in the tree. So we're just going to assume that Nick was injured. Let's say he got knocked out. Maybe his, but I need to go up and get him. He fell out of the tree with the phone. So he's, but his climbing system has been compromised. So I can't just, go up and get him and lower him down on his system. Okay. Let's say we don't have another system with us to use. The crew took the truck to get lunch, and it has all the climbing gear in it. Right. So it's just me and my climbing system, and I got to get Nick. So we'll just assume that Nick is maybe even jammed in a fork of a tree where I have to lift him up. Okay. And that's difficult to do, particularly if I can't use his climbing system to do it. So yeah, maybe turn your head toward the tree. Sweep it up. All right. Well, anyway, we're going to wing it. It'll be fine. So what I'm going to do is use the add-in Prusik, and I'm going to create a counterbalance system where I'm using my body weight on my side of the moving rope system, and then I can counteract his body weight with my own. So I'll be on one side of the system, he'll be on the other side. And hopefully I'll just talk loud. I think you'll be able to hear it anyway. The delivery trucks have stopped. So call 911 and do all that stuff, but we're just going through the technical climbing part of it right now. So what I'm going to do, I need to, of course, get myself to Nick, but I'm going to install the add-in Prusik. That Perfecto that I gave you earlier that had oh yeah, it's on there? Cool. Always be prepared. Okay. Add-in Prusik goes on the iSplice side. 1, 2, 3, 6 Prusik. That gets connected into the top hole. And now I create a relatively long length of rope. It eats up a lot of rope in order to do the lift. So I'm going to give myself at least 6 feet of tail. All right. Right. You need to make sure that your anchor point is strong enough to support 2 individuals. So that's another thing. If you have an existing anchor point that you felt comfortable climbing on, but you wouldn't want to double load it, you're going to need to reposition that before you do this rescue, which is what I did here. I moved this to a nice big unit. So Nick has a chest harness here. I can incorporate that to keep him comfortable. There are all kinds of different things you can do here with different Prusiks and carabiners. Do you have just a spare carabiner that'll fit.
Yeah, laying on it.
Feel free to take whatever you want from their harness too. They're not going to care. Will this go through here?
Yep.
And will that be comfortable for you?
We're
We're going to find out if this is going to be comfortable. All right. So what I'm going to do, past that. Can you see that, Kale? Is that in frame? I'm passing this line now through that carabiner on the chest harness, and I'm clipping it in. I would normally maybe want to clip into his swivel. You could do that when height is an issue, like you need as much room as possible. Shorten things up and just clip directly to the bridge, right? That saves you, that big swivel is, this long. That's saving me that much height. Okay, but so that's connected and secured. All right, now I'm going to go up as I normally would on my friction hitch until this leg of rope starts to get tight, and I hope I stay in frame. Let me know if I'm out of frame. Make sure you don't kick anyone. Okay, that's starting to get a little tight. Am I still in frame, Kale? Okay, perfect. You don't want to look at that anyway. So now that this is a little bit tight, the next thing I want to do is add some friction to the tail of the climbing line. So I'm going to take my foot ascender off. You can use a figure 8. I like to use a ring. Just push a bite through the ring. Carabiner goes to the forward D. Like a stitch plate. Is that visible, Kale? Pretty much. Okay, we want that friction there because now my friction hitch is going to be taking both of our weight, and it's only used to taking half of my weight, right? So now it's going to take all of my weight with Nick's weight tensioning this leg and my weight tensioning the prusik. So at this point, what do? I'm going to grab the add-in prusik and descend gently because it's polyester. Okay, and as I descend, oh, my friction hitch is slipping. So let's do that over. This is why it's important to get that to get the added friction in right away, because in that case, with that friction hitch slipping, that added friction actually helped me. So we're going to have to troubleshoot here, and I'm going to go up, move it. Okay, that reset, that's fine. Get added friction back in. All right, and descend now on the add-in prusik. Now I can lift, jam that down, lift again. All right, that wasn't as dramatic because I slipped a little bit there, but you can see now this add-in prusik isn't doing anything, but it is keeping, if I was ultra heavy and it wanted to shoot Nick up into the air, or if Nick was heavier than me and it wanted to throw me up in the air, that prusik is keeping us locked together. And you can see this little bit here is keeping Nick in a comfortable position. So before we descend, right, I want to make a hard connection between us. So I can just connect to his bridge there or a swivel, whatever. I'm going to move this to my swivel. So now we've got a hard connection. If I needed to, I could lose that prusik now or keep it installed. Doesn't matter. And then as I descend, I'm going to keep my hand on this stitch plate so that it's not a dramatic, blistery, fiery descent. Okay, so Hope that made sense. And when you practice this, make sure you stand up at the same time. Any questions on that, Kale? Always before, because if he wakes up, then you're busted. How much time do we have? Are we over now? Okay. I want to run that one more time, and I'll just do it without talking, just so we can see how quickly it is to do. How that. And then I'll correct that mistake with the slipping hitch. I mean, I'll talk a little bit. I just won't talk as much. Oh yeah. Okay, add in press it. Top hole the hitch climber. Give yourself a good amount of rope. I'll do a little bit less so I don't go out of frame. Okay, bang. Connect to your victim. You can use the chest harness thing. I'm not going to use the chest harness thing this time, just so you can see how dramatic it is when just rescuing somebody without any chest support. And you don't have to play it up too much, Nick.
So I'm not gonna
up on your tail until that add-in side starts to get tight, which it's getting now. Now you can stop and make darn sure that prusik is grabbing. First things first, put in your friction. Stitch plate. All right, we're good to go. Now pull down on the add-in prusik, push it all the way down, and now pull up. Okay? All the way down, pull up. Okay, this is a great rescue position, straddling. I have control. I can keep my feet, I can use my feet on the trunk, keep his head away from there. It's going to make a hard connection between us, just with my lanyard because it's convenient. This is another one reason you might want to connect to the swivel. It keeps these things organized, but this is just fine. I don't see any problem here. This is now just doing nothing. So keeping tension in this leg, friction, and we descend to the ground together. Big happy family. And that's it. Yeah, the friction hitch binding, right? And that's why you introduce the friction below. So you're basically. Let me bring the camera closer. Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, that's why we add the friction below, so that the friction hitch isn't taking all of my body weight now, because I've got my body weight tensioning this side of the line, and Nick's body weight is tensioning that side of the line. So it means that whereas normally, right, if I were climbing, this would be taking half of my body weight. But when I separate these apart, this is taking 100% of my body weight, so we have to add friction below or above. You could also do this with a rope wrench, for example, or what was it, the Fate revolver, whatever. You can add a rope wrench above here too. It's the same principle. You're just taking some of that friction, some of that load away from the hitch so that it doesn't bind, or like you saw earlier, it slipped. So that's that. Yeah. So should I say final goodbyes or? Yeah, cool. Yeah, well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Thanks Nick for doing a great job, and just don't ever give him your iPhone. But no, that was great. And if you have any questions, hit me up on Instagram, hit me up on Facebook. Again, thanks to Tree Stuff, thanks to Nick and Kale and Carson for putting all this together. It's always a pleasure to work with them, and I hope you got something out of that. And hopefully, no technical difficulties were insurmountable. So, yeah, we appreciate it, and I'll let Nick say a little goodbye too.
Bye. I'm gonna go buy an iPhone. Thank you for stuff. This was a lot of fun. Sorry I added to the technical difficulties. Thanks everyone for listening. Yeah, hope you learned something.
Cool. Take the test, get some CEUs. See you later.